The Lions so far this season have had a tendency to absolutely dismantle inferior opponents, and that was the case once again as Detroit put on a clinic against the Jacksonville Jaguars. A select few players, fans, and former political figures have taken the opportunity to publicly criticize the Lions for quote unquote embarrassing teams. The Lions' response to that: we're just playing football. If you're not coming in here ready to win, you're going to get your ass whooped. What has attributed to the Lions' continued domination, and how do they sustain that the rest of the season? Let's discuss all that and more on this episode of Motor City Connected. Offensively, like we do every week, we'll start with what went well. The first thing I have written down: literally everything. I mean, you could not have walked into that game, sat down, and written how you wanted the game to go. You couldn't have drawn it up better than that. Seriously, it was just a clinic from start to finish, like I said in the open. Jared Goff had a clean pocket all day long. I don't even know if they had a single pressure. I know they didn't have a single sack. 24 of 29, 412 yards, 4 touchdowns, perfect quarterback rating of 158.3 for Goff. I mean, he looked so comfortable yesterday, and clearly Ben Johnson went into film, looked at the Texans week, saw what went wrong, where we were screwing up, where Jared Goff was the least amount of comfortable, and we just completely flipped the script. I mean, obviously, Jacksonville is a far worse team than the Texans, but again, it's an NFL opponent at the end of the day, and you beat them 55-6, 52-6, final score. I mean, offensively, you couldn't have asked for a better day all around. Considering Goff's performance last week, you wanted him to come out and you wanted him to show that he's still one of the most talented arm talents in the entire league, a guy that you can count on to be a star and put up star-studded numbers. I mean, 412 yards and 4 touchdowns. I do not care who you're playing in the NFL. That is very, very impressive. A good tune-up game, I think, is a good way to put it for this offense. You get back on track. You started to get the run game going again. Obviously, Jared Goff was way better than he was against the Texans. He didn't throw a single interception in this game. Every throw he made, it seemed like the receiver had an opportunity to make a play after the catch. So it just shows these guys were open often, and Goff was finding them when he needed to. A lot of crossing routes hit, a lot of out routes that Amon Ra was able to utilize on 3rd and short or 2nd and short to get first downs. It felt like everything was operating much smoother and easier, and everything was clicking from the first snap to the last. I mean, just all around, everybody was doing their 111th. I know it's a cliche in football, but it's the truth. I mean, when every single person is clicking on an offense, you're going to score points and you're going to win. And that was the case again today. I mean, 8 straight wins. This team is just on a roll. Even when they played bad against the Texans, they still won. And then, you go into this game, you can't even evaluate whether this team played good or bad. They just played Detroit Lions football, and it worked. I mean, you've seen it work again and again this year. Tennessee, not a great team. Again, Dallas, not a great team. But I don't know, you look at Minnesota and you look at Green Bay, and Green Bay had a really close game with Jacksonville. And Minnesota's game was really close against Jacksonville. And you look at some of these top tier teams in the league, even when they're playing inferior opponents, it's still a close game because at the end of the day, it's the NFL, and the talent gap is so small. But you just look at top to bottom, everything the Lions are doing, and they just dismantle teams that they should beat. Instead of just beating them by a score or 2 scores or whatever it may be, they beat the crap out of them. They take the life out of them. I mean, they're throwing the towel in at halftime. They know the game is over by halftime. And I mean, that's just defeating for a team. That's just, you go into halftime locker room and there's not really much you can say. In my own experience playing football, man, it just takes the life out of you when you know as hard as you can play, even if you give 110%, you're still not going to win the game. And that was the case again today. I mean, all around the offense was just on fire. I'll get it more into defense because the defense also played one of the best games I've seen them play all year long. But right now, talk about the offense. The running backs, after a struggle against Houston, started to pick it up, were more consistent throughout the entire 60 minutes. I know in Houston, the run game kind of got going towards the end, but it was nice to see just consistency throughout the entirety of this game. David Montgomery, 15 carries, 75 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had a catch or two. I know he had 20 receiving yards as well. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 carries, 69 yards, and a touchdown, plus a 54-yard catch and run around halfway through the game. I mean, all these big explosive offensive plays kind of all just mixed together in this game. I don't even remember when Jahmyr Gibbs' 54-yard catch and run was, but man, was that explosive. He shot out of a cannon down that right sideline, and I'm surprised they caught up to him. But, I mean, you can just see this guy, outside of a couple running backs in this league, Jahmyr Gibbs is the fastest running back in this league. He is the shiftiest running back in this league, one of the hardest to tackle. It's so fun to watch him just become a star. And I know last year he was good, great at times, but this year he is consistently unbelievable. And I can't say enough about the job that this staff has done with this two running back set and this two running back backfield. I think it's really hard, especially as an NFL team where you have to run the ball in the NFL to have success. There's no way around it. You have to be able to run the ball. And when you have two guys who are as consistently good as David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, it's embarrassment of riches. It's such a luxury. I was watching the game yesterday with a big group of guys, and we had a couple different games on, and the Bears Packers game was one of them. I was sitting next to a Bears fan, and he was kind of glancing back and forth, and he just watching him watch Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery operate. It was hilarious because he's sitting there like, oh, must be nice, must be nice to consistently have two guys that can break 8 to 10 yards every single play if they really need to. And yeah, I mean, if I was a fan of another team and I was watching this backfield operate, I would think the same thing. Must be nice because there is not a lot of running back duos in the history of football that are as productive as Gibbs and Montgomery have been this year. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't even think of a lot of running back by committee. I feel like, yeah, there's been running backs who have really good backups, but David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, neither of them are the starter and neither of them are the backup. They're both the starter. And they're both consistently they're just game breakers. They break games open and they impose their will early and they just break you down. And that was the case again yesterday. You could just see Jacksonville's defensive front is good for sure. They're by no stretch of the imagination are they a bad defensive front. We're just better. I mean, you look at Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen, and they're good. They've got some playmakers and they've got some studs, but Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow, Taylor Decker, they're too big, they're too strong, they're too smart, their football IQ is too high, and they're too comfortable in this system for a defensive front to be able to really create sustainable havoc all game long against this run game. I mean, you saw Houston did it in the first half last week, but they couldn't get it done in the second half because, again, we just push and lean until you don't have any will to continue to go. And I love it. I absolutely love what Ben Johnson's doing. I think a lot of people might have thought coming into this game after Jared Goff's tough outing against Houston that the Lions were just going to pound the ball on the ground all game long. And that really wasn't the case. I feel like they opened up the passing game for 3 quarters maybe even more than they have all year long. And obviously, Jacksonville's secondary is abysmal, and you got to take advantage of that. But it was cool to see just the balance in the running and passing game that Ben Johnson was able to find early on in this game because, I mean, first quarter was over and you already knew the Lions were going to run away with it. So I'm glad Ben Johnson was able to get everybody involved in the offense. Really, I mean, there was nobody that had an insane game. I mean, outside of Amon Ra St. Brown, but I mean, it's not like he was the only receiver in the receiving corps to have a crazy good game. Jameson Williams also had a 100-yard receiving game and a touchdown. So I think it's awesome that Ben Johnson has the luxury to do that. And I am just glad that I'm a fan of the team that has the luxury to be able to do that. Because in the past, it hasn't been like this for the Lions. You'd have maybe one, you'd have a Kelvin Johnson and then a Nate Burleson game, breakout game, or a Reggie Bush here and there. But this offense is you can consistently count on everyone to have a good game because it's so hard for defenses to prepare for multiple weapons, and Ben Johnson is fully aware of that. So it's fun, man. It's really fun, and I absolutely just love what the leeway that Dan Campbell has given Ben Johnson to go do whatever he pleases. He said he gives him a blank slate at the beginning of the week and says, "All right, write down your scripted first drive or two." I mean, I know almost every football team, their first couple drives are scripted. Their plays are already decided before the game. So Dan Campbell tells Ben Johnson, do that and go score us a couple touchdowns. And then from then on, free reign, do what you want, and move the ball. And that's exactly what Ben Johnson did this entire game. A couple other guys, stat wise, that I liked. Amon Ra St. Brown, 11 catches, which we're not accustomed to seeing 11 catches from Amon Ra. Obviously, we know it was only on 11 targets because that's just who Amon Ra is as a receiver. He catches every single ball that's thrown his way. So yeah, 11 catches, 11 targets, 161 yards, 2 touchdowns, only a long of 27, and he had 161 yards. I mean, he's consistently getting first down after first down, and it's so fun to watch Amon Ra just bully defenses and just create so much havoc that you can't prepare for him. Everybody knows that Amon Ra is riding a 7-game touchdown streak. And now he's riding an 8-game touchdown streak because Jacksonville, regardless of the fact that they were aware of it, couldn't stop it. Twice, Amon Ra had 2 touchdowns. And at some point, defenses in the red zone are going to have to double team him, and that's just going to give more opportunity for Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Tim Patrick, Khalif Raymond, everybody. There's just so many weapons on this team that when Amon Ra gets taken away, next man up. And that was the case once again yesterday. Because Amon Ra, I will quote unquote, he was shut down, which he was not. But Jameson Williams, because of the amount of just pressure that Amon Ra puts on a defense, Jameson Williams, again, he takes the defense off the top for a 64-yard touchdown early on in the third quarter, I believe. He ended with 4 catches, 124 yards, a touchdown, a long of 64, only 6 targets, but Jameson Williams is so explosive. He knows what he needs to do with his target share. When he gets the ball, he knows that he has to make a play because that's why we have him. He's a speedster. He's a 0 to 100 guy. And again, like we saw against the Seahawks and like we've seen multiple times in multiple games throughout his career, Jameson Williams has the ability to take the top off of a defense any given play. And he did it once again. So moving on to less stats and just more overall analysis. 9 different receivers caught a ball. We featured a ton of our guys, and that's awesome. And that's great because, again, in a blowout win like that, you need to figure out ways to get other guys involved to see what you have down the stretch of seasons. Injuries are a massive part of football, and if you don't have a team full of depth pieces, those injuries will come back to bite you in the butt later down the stretch of the season. So it's nice to see we still have the ability to get Brock Wright and Shane Zylstra and Tim Patrick and Khalif Raymond and Allen Robinson. We have those guys that are able to step up regardless if we have injuries or not. Um, so good stuff there by Ben Johnson and staff, just getting our guys involved. Um, and then just another ridiculous stat. Sorry, I have to do another stat. Had the ball 9 times in this game. You scored 7 touchdowns. You had 1 field goal. And on the 8th drive, you need the ball with Hendon Hooker, which realistically, if there was more time, you probably could have scored another touchdown. 7 straight touchdowns. And then a field goal late in the game, just because we wanted to show everybody that Jake Bates still has a leg and can still kick it. He hits a 54-yarder, and then, yeah, last possession of the game, you take a knee, and it's over. 52-6 was the final. I mean, 7 straight touchdown drives. I don't even care if you're playing the worst team of all time, if you're playing the 0-16 Lions. 7 straight touchdowns against an NFL defense. I mean, that's just taking the will out of somebody. And that's just punching somebody so many times in the face, they don't even have the will to get up and fight back. They're just letting it happen. And that was kind of the case, especially in the second half. You could just see the Jaguars were just defeated. They had no life. And I mean, that's what happens when you have the ability to go to 8 different offensive weapons and you just tip your cap to the Lions if you're the Jaguars, because you clearly went into the week knowing you couldn't stop them, and you didn't even try, really. That's just kind of folding, laying down, and letting a team beat the crap out of you. And that's what happened last night in this game. I mean, I genuinely, I will say, I felt a little bad for the Jaguars. Not really, though, because the Lions have been on the receiving end of these beatdowns many, many times in my life. So I can't feel too bad. But yeah, the Jaguars are in a really bad spot. And I hope the best for them. I hope everything starts to work out and Trevor Lawrence can come back healthy, because it's no fun watching a team just, live in under 500 purgatory. I mean, the Lions, a lot of fans have come out and been like, I want to watch the Lions succeed because I feel bad that over the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they've been awful. And that's kind of where the Jaguars are headed at this point. Moving on, complete offensive domination from first snap to last, like I talked about, 7 straight touchdowns. I mean, just that is the definition of dominant, and that's what the Lions offense has been this year from top to bottom. Again, I know I talked about it earlier. Ben Johnson moving the ball around a ton, gave Goff a bunch of easy throws early on in the game. That was awesome. I love that he did that, because even when you're playing a bad team, you got to get your quarterback comfortable after the outing he had last week. You're obviously rolling with Goff. He's your guy. He's your quarterback of the future for the next however many years. So even though he's a veteran and he's proven that he can be great, it's still sometimes going back to the basics and getting him easy throws early on in a game, letting him set up the offense, and just in work. I feel like they tried to work backwards last week and tried to have the passing game set up the run game. That was the opposite this week. Early, easy throws, short throws, running the ball consistently. That's what's going to set up your deep ball. That's what's going to set up your passing attack down the field, and that's what happened yesterday, excuse me. I had it written down, opposite game plan compared to Texans game. And yeah, that was nice to see that Ben Johnson kind of went back to the drawing board. Even though Kai coming into the game, he knew this was going to be a blowout. He went back to the drawing board, said, okay, this is a game that we can get Jared Goff right, and we can get back to his mechanics, make sure that the Texans game never happens again. And that was the case on Sunday. Another thing I really liked offensively, long fields that we were still able to score. The Titans game was a weird game. Jared Goff only had like 85 passing yards. We just got set up in the red zone so many different times with turnovers, with punt returns, with good kick returns. And it was good to see that we were able to sustain a long, dragged out 8-play, 9-play, 75-yard drive multiple times in a row. Um, just because, you never really want to see your offense just not have a great game but still score a ton of points. It's an embarrassment of riches. It's such a luxury to have that I can sit here and be like, you know what? I don't like it when the Lions blow teams out and don't move the ball a ton on offense. I want them to blow teams out, but also move the ball on offense. So defense, don't intercept the ball. Don't get a bunch of turnovers because I want to watch the offense operate. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but in this game, you saw they were set up within the 20-yard line multiple times. Jaguars punter did a good job of pinning them deep, and then the rest was history. You could just see the offense could move the ball at will, and that's what they did, which was fun. I love watching our offense operate. It's like music to my eyes. And then lastly, offensively, I'll throw Jake Bates in there. 7 of 7 extra points, 55-yarder late in the game. It must be nice being the kicker for the Lions, is what I have written down. Like, it's got to be pretty fun to be a kicker for a team where you don't really have a lot of high leverage kicks, and when you do, you're prepared where you can go and knock them down. Every kick this year, besides the late game Vikings kick and the 2 late game kicks against the Texans, have been low leverage kicks for Jake Bates, allowed him to kind of get comfortable, and then he can come in when you're winning by 50 and still knock in a 55-yarder no problem. So it's probably pretty fun, I would imagine, to be Jake Bates right now. I think he probably has one of the best gigs in all of football right now. Another guy, my last thing I have about the offense, another guy who has a pretty good gig in football is Jack Fox. He had the day off yesterday. He got to take a little rest and enjoy a nice football game from the sideline. But yeah, that was no punts. So Jack Fox, you, my friend, got a little rest day, and hopefully you'll have a couple more of those down the stretch of the season. What did not go well? Literally nothing. No stalled drives. Move the ball at will. The only thing that I would say, get the starters out earlier. I want to see Jared Goff out of the game in the third quarter. I want to see both our running backs out of the game in the third quarter. I want to see Amon Ra out. I want to see our O-lineman out. The injuries this year have just been awful. It hasn't really affected the Lions too much, clearly, but obviously you don't want players to get hurt, and it would be nice to be full strength heading into the playoffs. So if you start blowing teams out like that, and you know they're not going to come back, when you're up 30, just take the starters out. I know, I get it. You wanted Jared Goff to have a good game. You wanted people to see he still got it, but take him out. Let Hendon Hooker do his thing, and live to see another day. And yeah, now defensively, another just dominating performance by this defense. It was a thing of beauty. It was just an absolute thing of beauty. Allowed less than 200 total yards. Another game where the opposing team doesn't have a 100-yard rusher. Doesn't even get close. Travis Etienne had 12 carries for 27 yards, 2.3 yards per carry. I would love to go see on average what running backs are averaging against us per carry this year. It's got to be like 2.6 yards per carry. It's got to be ridiculous. No running back has been able to really have a good game. Josh Jacobs had the best game, and he got shut down in the second half. Just a dominant performance by that front seven. Even though we still have a ton of injuries on that front seven, doesn't matter. Got guys like Ben Neiman stepping up and making plays. Like, you can just tell every single person on that defense is so dialed in. So dialed in. And the defense is feeding off of the offense, which that's similar to how things were last year. It seemed like when the offense was clicking, so was the defense. But then again, you saw, like last week, the offense struggles, but the defense is able to build their own momentum and continue to ride it. You shut out the Texans in the second half a week ago, and then this week, it's the Jaguars, a little different, but you shut out the Jaguars again in the second half. Shutting teams out throughout an entire 30 minutes is ridiculous. Aaron Glenn, shout out you, man. Whatever you're doing, keep it going because you've got those boys flying around. I don't care if it's a 40-point ball game with 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Those boys are dialed. And it's refreshing because I know last year the defense was a big concern, and that's not the case this year. We as Lions fans are not really concerned with the defense at all. So just glad to see Aaron Glenn really like embodying the grittiness and the grit of Detroit with his defense because obviously the offense, we know what we've got there. We know that they are just going to push on you and lean on you as hard as they can, as long as they can until you eventually lose all willpower. But that defense is starting to become that as well. And that's really, really scary for the rest of the NFL because a defense and an offense that embodies Dan Campbell is not very fun to go against. It's just not. Nobody wants to play against these guys. Um, Moving on, Kerby with his 7th interception of the year. He sits alone at the top of interception leaders in the NFL. I would love it if he could get a 10 interception season. You know how cool that would be for a Lions player to have 10 picks in a year? They're starting to throw at him less and less and less, and that will continue to progress the rest of the season, but just quarterbacks know, don't throw at Kerby Joseph or you will have a little one in that interception column on your stat sheet at the end of the game because it doesn't matter. You can throw the ball kind of on target and Kerby Joseph will fly in and he will snatch it right away from your receiver, or he'll come over the top and he'll out of nowhere he'll just jump a route and take it to the house like he did against Green Bay. I mean, it's so refreshing to watch a defensive back room that is just filled with studs. It's not even like they're a team with, a couple good guys here and there. No, Brian Branch and Kerby Joseph are both all pro level safeties. They fly around. And then they play so different too, which is so awesome. Kerby Joseph is kind of like, he'll sneak around. He's not going to draw a ton of attention. He's not going to blow up a pitch play to the outside like Brian Branch does, but he'll make a tackle every now and then. He'll have a TFL every now and then. And then, yeah, obviously, like I said, Brian Branch will just blow up a play and just create havoc in the backfield as said it last week, 6 foot, 200-pound safety. I mean, you saw the hit he laid on Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram's like 6'4", 250 pounds, and Brian Branch made him look like a slot receiver. It's so fun to watch these guys, and this defense in general is such a pleasure to watch. And you got Zadarius Smith now. He had a couple pressures yesterday. He got his first sack as a Lion yesterday. I mean, regardless of any injuries this team has had, it's just been such a next man up mentality. And this coaching staff has done such a great job putting these guys in the right positions to succeed. And then obviously the players have done a great job taking in the coaching and digesting the coaching that they're giving them and actually applying it on the field and not looking at 10 hours of film they watched during a week and saying, man, that sucked. I just watched 10 hours of film, but saying, man, that was really educational, very informing, and I cannot wait to go out on the field and apply what I've learned and what I've prepared for this week. And that's what they do every single week. It starts and ends in the training facility, and they're just so prepared to go win games. I mean, the Jaguars were terrified to try and go for the deep ball with Brian and Kerby over top. We've seen that more and more this season. Teams are afraid to take deep shots. The only really deep ball that I've seen a lot of teams try and exploit is the one-on-one on the outside with Terrion Arnold or Carlton Davis. And we'll take that because the sideline becomes an extra defender at that point anyways. And if you are going to make a throw and you're going to put it in the breadbasket over the top and you're going to hit your receiver and slide, props to you because that's a really tough throw to make. And that's a good, if you can do that, then by all means, hats off to you, great play. But the fact that that's really the only deep shot that teams have, that's a really tough throw to make. And we've seen it happen multiple times this year. You try and take that deep ball shot anywhere more than 10, 15 yards down the field, and both our safeties are going to be right there over the top looking to pick it off. So it's really fun to see this defense become not just a defense that teams respect, but a defense that teams are kind of afraid of and kind of apprehensive to try and attack because they're just top to bottom. Every single position we have is filled with a guy who can make a play at any time during a game. So good stuff there. I absolutely just love to see our defense kind of, even regardless of how young they are, come into their own and be a complete unit. I know last year there was a lot of holes at the cornerback position, and that was a big problem. But this year you can just tell they don't have that gnawing sensation in the back of their head that, shoot, man, we're so good against the run, but any given down, a team can take us to 80 yards to the house on a one-on-one coverage with Cam Sutton or Kindle Vildor. That's just not the case anymore this year. Terrion Arnold has had his struggles, but he's been worlds better than anybody we had at that cornerback position last year. So excited to see what we can do, especially against some tougher opponents down the stretch of this season. But I mean, other than that, man, this defense, this culture in that defensive room must be just insane. They must be so locked in and on the same page. I would love to be a fly on the wall in one of their preparation sessions. I would love to be a fly on their wall right now during their Monday probably film session where they're just dissecting the Colts and just looking at them top to bottom. It must just be a bunch of like a meeting of the minds. I mean, Aaron Glenn, Kelvin Shepard, even the high IQ of some of these guys on defense. I mean, Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell, Kerby, Brian, Zadarius Smith. We've got some vets now. We've got some guys that have experience, and man, it's so infectious. You can just see it. Hopping into what didn't go well defensively, another scratch. Not really much. There wasn't much that went wrong. I know Alex Anzalone breaking his forearm is a huge blow to the linebacker room, but again, we've seen it this year. Malcolm Rodriguez was hurt for a couple of weeks. Derek Barnes has been hurt all year. Now Alex Anzalone's hurt. Malcolm Rodriguez is back, which is nice. But guys like Ben Niemann are stepping up. Jack Campbell's playing some of the best football of his career. And obviously, it sucks having Anzalone break his forearm. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. But it's an opportunity for some guys to step up and some guys to really show Aaron Glenn that they are a part of this defense for years to come. So obviously, again, you hate it, but it's nice to see guys that we can fill those roles with Jalen Reeves-Maybin and with Ben Niemann and with Jack Campbell and with Malcolm Rodriguez, and you don't really see much of a fall off at that position because of how just deep they are as a room. Speedy recovery for Alex Anzalone. Hopefully we'll see him back before playoffs. I'm assuming we will. I don't see a world where it takes him 10 weeks to get back. They said 6 to 8, so that's kind of where I expect him to come back. It'll be around week like 15, 16. So over these next, 6 weeks, it's gonna have to be there's gonna have to be some switching around and some parity in that linebacker room, and I fully expect those guys to be ready to go. Next week's going to be a tough matchup for sure. The Colts are a sleeper team, no doubt about it, but this defense, the way they're playing, they keep coming out with their hair on fire. Nobody's going to beat them. I mean, yeah, that's all I really had for what didn't go well. And that's pretty much all I have regarding this game in particular. I want to take a little bit of a quick look at the Colts and then wrap this up. I thought that the Jaguars might be a trap game. It wasn't. But next week definitely is. Trust me, guys, this week is the trap game because the Colts are much better. They're 5-6. They just beat the Jets yesterday. It's going to be in Indianapolis. They're still fighting for playoffs, Even though they're 5-6, they're still fighting for a playoff spot. Anthony Richardson is the solidified quarterback, and he can move. He can move out of the pocket. Um, he's got great legs. He's fast. He's quick. He's strong. He's big. Um, Definitely can't take this team lightly. And I don't think we're, as an organization, anybody in that organization, and I just think as an organization, we never take anybody lightly, so I don't see that being a problem. I see them going in and punching the Colts in the mouth just like we have done the past 8 weeks. Um, Got to play solid defense and shouldn't have a problem. Sitting at 9-1 right now with a chance to get their 10th win before Thanksgiving. That is something I thought I'd never say as a Lions fan. 10 wins before Thanksgiving would be ideal. I mean, 10 wins gets you into the playoffs. So you can essentially clinch a playoff berth with a win next week. Obviously, that is not our goal. We're not trying to win 10 games this year. We're trying to win 16. We're trying to go 16-1 now. And they got a really good opportunity to get some wins against some bad teams. And it starts in Indianapolis this week. Well, it started with Jacksonville this week. They got the job done. You can wrap up the AFC South, I believe. Yeah, they played every team in the AFC South now. Well, after they play the Colts, you got a chance to sweep the AFC South, go 4-0 in that division. And yeah, let's go get a win, man. Unfortunately, the NFC North continues to win, so we're going to have to continue to win as well if we want that 1 seed. It's not just the NFC North teams that are going to be trying to fight to lose only 3-4 games, because I don't see a world where that 1 seed has more than 4 losses. So got to keep stacking wins and hopefully get a bye week headed into the playoffs. But at this point, I know it's really weird to say this with have 7 more games left in this season, but the Lions control their own destiny. I mean, they control their destiny throughout the playoffs. They win every single game the rest of the year. They are the 1 seed and they get a bye week. So keep stacking wins, keep going, getting it done. Defense, keep playing your butts off. And let's go get number 9. Let's go get win number 9 in a row. It would be win number 10 on the season, but 9 wins in a row, man. Not a lot of teams have had a 9-game winning streak, and it would be really cool if the Lions could be one of them, and then 10, and then 11, and then 12, and just keep it rolling, man. That's all I have for today. This has been Motor City Connected with Kyle Garrison. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will catch you guys all next week. Peace.